Buenas, ¿cómo están? Buenos días. It's your boy, Daniel Herrera. As you all know, I'm a language coach. I've been making videos for a while now, and I love it. And it's a good way for me to share my message, to share my perspective on learning and acquiring a new language. So today I'm going to be sharing with you different resources, maybe new activities that you can implement and incorporate into your practice to immerse more, to get more familiar with the language. We're going to be talking about podcasts, shows, singers or music that you should be implementing into your practice, YouTubers. At the end of the day, it's all about trying new things and determining or seeing what works best for you. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is recognize and create some clarity around how the Spanish language works. The accent and the words might be a little different, but that doesn't mean that the language changes. The language is still the same. The structure of the language is the same, everything. For example, la palabra bus, the bus. In Spain is gonna be el autobús. Now, if you go to Mexico, in Mexico they don't call it autobús, they call it el camión. If you go to Argentina, it's no longer autobús o camión, is el colectivo. And if you come to my country, if you go to Peru, we call it la combi. People in other countries still understand autobús or bus or camión, because the context is going to help you make sense of what you're saying. They're going to be able to tell that you're not from around there. So if you want to fit in better, if you want to sound like a local, that's why we learn the specific dialect for that location. Another thing I wanted to touch on is the importance of accent. We've looked at the words that change depending on where you are. Now the accent also changes, so the rhythm changes, the rhythm how they use it, and the pronunciation of certain letters. Let's take Argentina and Uruguay, for example. These two countries, they have a very peculiar accent. Yo me llamo. In Argentina or Uruguay, they have the sh to replace those two sounds. So the Y is sh and the double L is also sh. So they would say yo me llamo, right? So that makes it a little different. It's not that the language changes completely, but it does make it a little different, and you should be aware of these variations in the sounds for each and every country. So the next thing is the prioritization of speaking and writing, right? The two active skills that I talk about all the time, right? Reading and listening are very passive, and typically we rely on those more than the active skills, speaking and writing. You see, and specifically speaking. So if you've been trying to learn Spanish for a long time, maybe, and this is just a wild guess, maybe it hasn't worked for you because you've probably been only doing, the things that are very passive. I want you to understand that for learning a language, the goal, the ultimate goal is to be able to speak and communicate with people. However, most of us, we delay that objective, that goal for last, and we actually try to do other things. We try to understand it, we try to make sense of it, we try to memorize words, and we neglect speaking, when in fact you can start speaking from day one. You don't need to wait. So now we can talk about the type of activities that we can incorporate and start exploring in order to make progress in Spanish, to improve our Spanish, regardless of our level. So the first activity is to pick a TV show, something this is really important too. The TV show or movie that you choose needs to be something that you're already kind of familiar with. Preferably you should have already watched this TV show in your mother tongue. So let's see how we can use this activity to train each skill. So when you're watching a movie and writing down vocabulary, you're training your listening, of course, because you're listening to the movie. You train our reading, because we enable the subtitles. We have our notepad handy and we're writing down vocabulary. You can use the words, the new vocab that you wrote down on your notepad, and use that as a way to practice your speaking, because you can maybe make a voice recording of all the words, the new words that you wrote down. Read articles and the news. Find any article of your choice, anything that you're interested in. Make sure it's something that you're naturally curious about, and then find that article in Spanish and start reading it. And how are you training your writing when you read an article? Well, you're using your notepad to write words that you don't understand in the article. How do you train your speaking when you're reading an article or the news? Well, you read the article out loud. And I talk about how you shouldn't just read it, but also record it. Record your own voice. You know, whatever you read on, find the same thing, the same topic, find it on a video, and then listen to it, or start a video blog. So every day you're making a video with your phone, right? And you talk about the things that you do, you talk about the book that you're reading, you talk about your daily routine, you maybe want to do a to-do list. I'm sure you notice a pattern, right? Every activity that we've covered so far is training you in the 4 essential skills that you need to really make this happen. Speaking in front of a camera, making a video blog. How does it train your speaking? Well, you're speaking already because you're in front of the camera. For this one, maybe you're not training your reading so much unless you first write everything that you wanted to say. You already trained your writing because you translated from English and you had to write for that, right? So you translated from English into Spanish and you wrote that in Spanish. Start with your phone, with your own contacts first. Reach out to people that are Spanish speakers that you haven't talked to for a while, and then start reconnecting. My personal preference is to just find people that speak Spanish in my life, from my contacts, and then start with them. But you can also try strangers if that's your thing, or dating apps to practice. We are sending them voice messages. We're training our speaking by doing this. How do we train our writing? Well, we're texting with these people. Reading, we're reading their messages, we're texting back and forth. If we're sending these messages, we can replay our own messages we sent and listen to how we sound, which is training our ear. The next thing is to learn grammar with ChatGPT. I consider grammar to be important, but not essential at the beginning. So if you are just starting, don't worry about this activity, and you prioritize the grammar topic that you're trying to master, and then you prompt ChatGPT. You download ChatGPT for free, and you prompt it to explain to you the rule and to give you examples. Once we've done this with ChatGPT, once we had it teach us, this specific grammar rule, what we want to do is to right away use it in real speech. How do you train your reading? Well, ChatGPT gave you a test, taught you something in Spanish, so you probably read all that information. ChatGPT gave you a bunch of quizzes. It quizzed you on what it taught you, right? So most likely you also had some responses that you typed in Spanish. You contacted someone, right? You found contacts that speak Spanish. You didn't wait. Now you also went ahead and send a voice message using the specific tense that you just learned with ChatGPT. Get a library card. From your nearest library. And most of these libraries have, they have online access to books, so they let you borrow books in Spanish online. As long as you're training the skill, it doesn't really matter what you read. You prioritize the skill over the content, and then you talk about it, right? So that's how you train your speaking. Listening, how do you train your listening? Again, you're listening to your own voice. Reading, of course, you're reading, so that's a no-brainer. And then writing, before you spoke, you wrote your opinion about what you read. So the next activity is one of my favorite ones, and I think one of the most complete activities to tap on all these skills, and it's the activity of listening to music that we like. We listen to a song that we like, it's easier for us to sing along the lyrics. Of course, previously we had already found the lyrics online, we googled the lyrics, and so we're singing along those lyrics. How are we training our listening skill? Again, it's pretty obvious because we're listening to music, right? And so, and when we have an understanding, familiarity, not just a familiarity, but we actually enjoy what we're listening to, our brains tend to remember better. How do we train our writing when we listen to music? Well, we're writing down the words that we want to memorize, right? Because it's a song that we enjoy, we're curious about, we like. Chances are that we want to know the meaning of the song. We're training our reading with this activity because we're reading to the lyrics. Next one is podcasts. Listen to podcasts. How do we train our speaking? We can talk about the things that we learn from the podcast, right? After listening to it, we talk about it again. Depending on your level, if you're more intermediate, advanced, you can talk about it more, right? Make a video of yourself talking about what you listen to. That's how you use that podcast to practice your speaking skills. If you're listening to a podcast, you're training your listening. So speaking, listening, reading. So how do we train our reading? We read the script of that podcast prior to listening to the actual thing. You should always be writing new words, new phrases that you learn. Even if it's just one or two, journal. Start a journal. I can't recommend this one enough. A lot of people underestimate the importance of writing when you're learning a language. You don't need to write much. As long as you're writing something, that's all that matters. You train your speaking by making a 30 seconds video of what you wrote. Now, listening, again, because you made a video, you can replay it, you can listen to your own voice, and that, again, is training your ear, training your understanding, training your listening. When you journal, you have to write and you have to read afterwards, because you're reading whatever it is that you're writing. So maybe you wrote a few words in English, but you took the time to translate those words to create a word bank and to know how to say these same words tomorrow when you write again. Become an actor. Learning a language and mastering a language is to, in a way, embody a different personality, right? So when you're speaking Spanish, you need to have this mindset of, okay, this is fun now. I'm a different person. I get to be someone else because I'm speaking a different language, right? How are you playing with your voice when you're creating these voice messages? Watch interviews of your favorite Spanish-speaking artists. If you like Maluma, maybe watch an interview of Maluma in Spanish. Now we're going to talk about how to find ways, how to create ways to integrate and incorporate more Spanish into your daily routine. The first thing is to follow more creators, more people just like me who teach you Spanish. And there is many these days. So you can just go on Instagram and just start following more Spanish content. It doesn't have to be like a teacher that is teaching Spanish, but maybe just some creator that is doing content in Spanish. Grab your phone and set the language on your phone to Spanish. The next thing is to listen to music. So I guess this is the easiest one for everybody because it's so easy to do. So make sure that whenever you're either driving, you're at the gym, you're at home, make sure to have the background, something in the background needs to be in Spanish for you. Next thing is to just talk to yourself. A lot of people think that this is weird, but this is something that whenever I'm learning a language, I want to start by learning the most common phrases that I would say naturally in my own language, in Spanish, and then start translating them into the language that I'm learning. Next thing is to start typing everything that you're searching for on Google. Typically we just go straight to English, right? Because that's your mother tongue, that's your native language. But start doing these searches in Spanish now. Another tip that is really useful is while you're waiting in line or whenever you're procrastinating, you're scrolling and not using that time. Every single pocket of time that you have needs to be used for learning Spanish. So now we're going to talk about more resources. I've already given you some, but I'm going to get really specific. The first resource, amigos, and I think that it's the most useful from everything these days, is AI. ChatGPT. This is the one that I wish I had when I was learning English, a few years ago, but I didn't. Right now, you do. It's so intuitive. The app is so intuitive. You can just prompt it to do anything, to translate. Google Translate is still good if you want something that's specifically for translation, but I think that I still prefer ChatGPT to help me with either speaking, reading, writing, or even listening. The next resource is Lingopie, and I'm an affiliate for Lingopie because this is how I did it for myself. Back in the day, I didn't have a resource that would allow me to watch the things that I wanted and have everything translated for me in my target language. I think that would have been so useful for me, but at the time I didn't have it. Apps that I would suggest and that I've personally used in the past, I don't use them anymore because I'm not learning a new language at the moment. But if I did, I would definitely start with Duolingo. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think it still helps you a lot because it's always giving you the reminders. I think consistency is really important, and Duolingo does that by reminding you, giving you challenges. Memrise teaches you in a different way. It's similar but different. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's still a good resource. JumpSpeak uses AI to help you practice your speaking. Again, I don't think you really need it because you have ChatGPT, which kind of does the same thing if you know how to prompt it. So these are some of the resources that I've used myself or that I've been recommended by others. Let's move on to podcasts. I like podcasts. The first one is for learners. Let's start with that. For learners, Spanish learners, specifically for Spanish learners that are starting from scratch, I would say Duolingo, the Duolingo podcast. Duolingo has the app, but it also has a podcast now. Some of my clients are sometimes sending me some of the episodes, and they're really, really good. I really enjoy listening to the Duolingo podcast. Radio Ambulante is another one that is pretty good, pretty well known. I'm gonna try and put them in the description below so you have access to them. And I have some recommendations here also. Another one is Con Amor Carajo. Enciende tu mente is another podcast. And Hay que hacernos millonarios. Let's talk about YouTube channels that I would recommend. Of course, I would recommend my channel. So make sure you subscribe to this channel to continue learning more Spanish. I'm planning on making more videos like this. Butterfly Spanish is the name. So I think she's really good at what she does, very resourceful. She doesn't need like equipment or cameras or anything, nothing fancy to create her videos. It's just a whiteboard and her teaching. So if you're into cooking, you should be watching Spanish channels that teach you how to cook better or give you new ideas for recipes, right? So everything that you're watching in English, try to find the same topics in Spanish now. So stop watching English channels, start watching Spanish channels. If you know any more channels, maybe you're learning Spanish just like all the people here, and you found some channels that have really made a difference in your life, comment below what these channels are. Give us more recommendations. Find artists in Spanish that resonate with you. I'm just gonna give you the ones that I like. Like for me, I love reggaeton music. One, Bad Bunny. Of course, Bad Bunny is pretty popular everywhere, so everybody is listening to him. Listen to Plan B from Puerto Rico. Another one is Maluma. Of course, I love Maluma. He's sometimes singing really fast, sometimes slow. So I love that about him. I love his voice. So listen to Maluma if you're learning Spanish and you like reggaeton music. And the last one is Karol G. I love Karol G. Again, whatever rocks your boat, make sure that if you're listening to Spanish, the music needs to inspire you, needs to make you want to continue learning even more. I think I've covered everything that I wanted to say in this video. If you have any more tips, any more suggestions, please feel free to share them with us. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you got some value out of this. and I will see you next time. Don't forget to follow and subscribe for more.